certainly the talented Sam Amick, I think. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi,
How are
Sam.
you doing today?
Good. I want to know why Chris is laughing. Chris is laughing
Because I'm in
behind
the kitchen again.
Oh, are you? Are you at your Keurig?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm always like 90 seconds behind.
You know what's funny
But
is...
see,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, after you.
Okay. Last week we had the Keurig talk in the beginning, and then I was reading some of the comments on the YouTube clip that they put up of these interviews, which you can find on the Sactown Sports YouTube. And there's one guy that goes in there every single clip, and he goes, "Kings Talk starts at 1:36," and he links it. So, so shout out to you, guy that is waiting for Kings Talk. Hello, and thank you for your hyperlink. Is look at Sam. He's wearing his athletic hoodie. I like to say I'm wearing my athletic hat. Not really, but it looks like an athletic hat. So we're branding today, pal.
We are. And I just, I apologize. You guys are learning, like, in a fight between my caffeine addiction and my two friends here, you continue to lose. So we...
Can I just offer, as we move on, can I just say there are coffee makers out there where you can set an alarm the night before and have fresh coffee when you wake up?
Way too fancy.
Yeah.
It's like a $20 Hamilton Beach coffee maker, dude.
This spoken from a guy who has 9 TV screens.
That's uncalled for.
I don't have that Sactown sports money.
Jason, take us away, please.
Oh my goodness, Sam. Well, let's do that. Get that Kings conversation going here early. I don't know that much has changed as far as the overall scope of things. Record still in that rough patch. I'm sure there's still a desire to trade players, but one thing I guess I could start with you, Sam. I'm seeing more teams kind of at least float that out, like maybe the Mavs would be interested in trading Anthony Davis. Some other teams that are off to slow starts. Do you think there's a high volume of players of teams already that are willing to make some moves this season?
Yeah, I mean, the AD one is maybe a bit of an outlier just because of all the drama around the Nico Harrison firing, and that's a franchise shift more than it is like a first 20 game shift. But regardless, I mean, yeah, you guys know, like, a lot of these contracts aren't even available to be traded until mid-December. I do think that if we broke every journalistic rule and hacked into the cell phones of GMs all over the league, you would definitely see an uptick in activity. I think conversations had probably, not even probably, they've definitely started happening in the last week or so. The Kings, it's going to be intriguing to see how the rest of the league handles, their players, where I can't remember a situation like this, and I wonder if any comes to mind for you guys, where you've got a fair amount of players who individually, have pretty decent reputations, but who collectively is just reaching the point of kind of, them writing SOS in the sky, like it's not working. So we'll see where it goes.
I feel like there was a Knicks team, maybe a Blazers team at one point. Those teams that just have this mushing together of talent, like when you take all the different Play-Doh and you mush it together and then you roll it up and it's gray. Like it's not an attractive piece of Play-Doh. To your point earlier, Sam, I'd like to make a article request. I haven't done this in a long time.
What do you got?
This is when you're like, oh, I need to write something. There's nothing going on. I'm sure this has been done. You might have even done
impression.
it. But I when you said hack into every GM's cell phone, right? Like, first off, if you could do that,
want me to actually do it?
I would love for you to do that.
Yes.
I would love for somebody who has access like you, not just to current GMs, but also, I'm sure, former GMs. I would love to see an article that's like, I spoke to, 8 current and former GMs, and this is the anatomy of how a trade works. I think myself included, but I think the listening audience and the reading audience would be fascinated by, for example, I love the idea of there being a 30-person text thread where all the GMs are on the same text thread, and then, like, the guy in Memphis goes, hey, any interest in Ja Morant? And then everybody pours in and sends trade machine links and all that, and then, all right, last and best offer.
Apple Pay link.
100%, exactly. But I know it's more boring. It's like, hey, any interest in this guy? Oh, I'll get back to you. But would love to see the anatomy of how these things work. If you put somebody out there, like, how many people do they text? Do they text them all? Do they text one? Is there a GM message board that's hidden somewhere where you can say, this guy is open for business? I don't know. I'm just saying, I think that would be very interesting.
That's fair. I mean, we've done stuff like that. One comes to mind. I forget, I don't know exactly what the headline was or the angle, but around the trade deadline years ago, one of my favorite stories in terms of getting people to speak on record. Although, man, I'm feeling terrible because I got 3 execs to speak on record. I'm forgetting who the third one was. It was Mike Zarin of the Celtics, Travis Schlenk at the time of the Hawks, and one other person where they did pull the curtain back quite a bit on what it's like, but that was more closer to the deadline. I remember an anecdote about an Isaiah Thomas trade that, they came like 30 seconds after the deadline and they had to get approval from the league. So it is still, as much as, we in the media cover it deeply, you're not wrong that, there's just still a lot of mystery about the actual machinations. And, and again, we joke about the hacking into the phone, the stuff that would be most fascinating or among the most fascinating to hear is that you have good old fashioned relationship dynamics, right? So like, you know, Dave and Jay, like if you have people in your work life that you just don't vibe with, but you have to deal with, like you would hear that tone, between GMs, or you would hear, you know, the tone of guys who have known each other 20, 30 years and are very tight. Like, and I remember when Jeff Petrie was running the Kings, you would see this pattern of um man, was it Billy King in Atlanta that he was just constantly trading with, because they had a friendship and they had a relationship and they had trust. You look at the ill-fated Luka Doncic trade. That was largely born out of the relationship dynamics between Nico Harrison with the Mavs and Rob Pelinka with the Lakers. So there is for sure a lot of interesting stuff this time of year behind the scenes.
So, Sam, kind of with that said, where I think we're all still of the belief that Scott Perry would like to clean up and change this roster a bit based on that and his, what we believe to be pretty good connections and relationships around the league. How do you think that will go in favor, if at all, for someone like Scott Perry?
No, it should. I mean, at minimum, and for the YouTubers, the dog has joined the show.
Hey,
Say
dog.
hello. Here we are. Yeah, for at minimum, it's. I mean, listen, I know he's always going to be a beloved King, but if you compare it to, like the Vlade Divac era, um, where ironically Scott, when he was here, would handle a lot of the calls, it's just you get past the stage of the person on the other side of the phone not being entirely sure of whether or not he's well versed in the CBA to the point to have a nuanced conversation about the trade. Has the reps in terms of, okay, no, this is how it works. Like you get past the inexperienced part, and you do hopefully make more progress in a more efficient way because you have a guy with a lifetime of experience. Not only as an exec, but his time in New York as the GM. I mean, you're talking about a major flagship franchise in the league, and one where they flipped that roster over during his time there. So that experience should definitely help as far as turning over every rock.
Can I also say, while you guys are talking, I looked on Amazon. There's like 10 that just came up of incredibly affordable. I mean, we're talking like under $100. Little remote control recorders that can stay. Isn't it kind of surprising in this day and age where nobody has ethics and everybody's sneaky and weird that, like, you've been in a GM's office.
Yourself.
I've been in a GM's office. Like, I'm saying we're not sneaky and weird, but like, how is somebody not like? How's there not been a scandal where a GM's phone has been tapped or somebody put like a little sticky recorder in someone's office? Like, how has that not happened yet?
And every time he picks the phone up and has a conversation, there's a tweet. The Kings are talking to.
Right. How are they finding this information out?
Yeah.
Who's the mole?
Right. I'm not saying you should do it, Sam, but I'm not saying you should. Sam ain't been joining us.
The closest, and this is ethically sound, you just gave me a flashback during the lockout is a long time ago in 2010, whenever that was, or the labor situation. I got creatively added to the players union memo mailing list in a way that was under the radar. So every time the union would send a memo, it looked like I had like convince somebody to send it to me, and it was like even better that it just landed in the inbox. Yeah, it was pretty great.
That's a pretty nice hookup. I've always been I've always been fascinated by how media sometimes will get their info, and I feel like half of it's going to be boring. Like one of the big newsbreakers out there is like, well, I know Sally in accounting. that's how I got it.
Right.
Doug Christie. I have had the thought that barring him, doing something horrible, that he's probably safe for the year, if for no other reason. He's cheap, and I don't think they, in the big scheme, are going to ultimately care about winning games as much as they normally would. Do you have a feel for that at all? Like with Mike Woodson sitting there, with him also having the history with Scott Perry in New York, what's your feel on Doug's job security this year?
I would love to get a little more clarity on it, because I've been with you that, you give him what's basically a 2-year deal. I don't know, like, it might be tough, but I don't know that you knew it was going to be this tough. I saw the stat last night about this being the worst start since 1991.
Yeah.
And like we talked about last week, and tell me if I've missed anything. I have not tuned in to Doug's press conferences, but I also, the ones early on this season, it didn't matter if you tuned in; they were viral, and they were jumping onto your social media feed. Like I said this before, I felt like the nature of his press conferences was maybe putting him more in harm's way, because it's just a little dramatic and a little extra given the reality of their situation. So, but this is just on paper. My NBA reporter instincts say, okay, you got to watch this pretty closely because it's really bad. Now, I don't know how the players would potentially feel about Mike Woodson. I also don't know, Mike's not a young man, and I think he's had a few health things as far as at least moving around, and I think there's a real question. I would want clarity on, like, where's his motor. But this is a pretty terrible start.
Yeah, just by the way, Sam, the tone and tenor of Doug, I would say the last maybe 3 games, completely different. Yeah, I mean, there were some aggressive post games, and the last couple has been, look, he's not happy, he's not through, but it's not the same, right, Dave? Haven't you felt that?
Yes, I have, and I'll ask you both this too. We'll do a little roundtable.
Yeah,
is he being helped by being on the road?
I don't know if it's that. I don't know.
As far as availability and all of
Maybe.
that. Yeah.
Well, as far as 100%. That's a good point. That's a matter of, I mean, there's a fairly robust local media, where at home, he's talking to Jason Anderson from the B. He's, he's talking to Sean Cunningham. He's talking to, Brendan Nunez and that whole group. And I think, and Deuce and Mason, and like, or Deuce and Mo, sorry guys, love you.
Deuce and Mason.
Just conflated them both.
It's all right. But I called Europe a country earlier, so don't worry about it. Move on.
Don't tell them. Don't snitch on me.
Don't tell them.
But like you are that. Those are in Doug's mind avenues to the Kings fans. So I do wonder whose questions he's been answering. If it's the guy from the Oklahoman who wandered over to the visitors' locker room, is there the same level of accountability and kind of connection?
Yeah, and I guess that's probably more of a accurate read, but I also wondered internally, without any knowledge of this guy's, if there would,
for sure, if they told him to chill, like
like if Scott Perry's like, look, like, it's a long season, nobody's thrilled with what we're doing, but you're good, like, expectation. He's super competitive and wants to win every game, but okay, I don't know that we could do this in game 6, game 8, game 12, like. Let's let this evolve a little bit.
Can we get like some, like, I'm so distracted by Dave right now. Can we get, like, stripper music?
No, come on. It's hot in here. The way this studio is set up, the AC is right above Jason, so he's always cold. And I'm like literally sweating. And then I got to do the fat guy trick where, like, when I take my hoodie off, I got to hold down my shirt so you don't get a belly flash. Yeah, exactly. And Sam, I don't have any info on this. I really do not. And I don't know if you do either. I would bet my house there was some sort of conversation internally after his after that big press conference.
Well, I mean, you're really good at pretending you don't know things.
Shut up. He just pulled back the sheet a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, you pulled off your shirt.
My understanding is,
I did,
yeah. Both are equally unpleasant to watch. I do think there was a conversation without question um, about just the idea that, for one, the opening press conference, he kind of stormed out of the room and there were no follow-up questions. And I think just in general, and this is just me talking, I mean, you already nailed it, Dave. Like, it would be okay to be like, Doug, I know how competitive you are. We can't be doing this for 82 games, especially when we're trying to work the roster out and we don't know how tough it's going to get.
Well, and on top of that, the players too. I mean, that was now again, unless you have, Sam, legitimately, I haven't heard about any player discontent yet at all. But it just seems that when
wait a minute,
huh?
You think they're happy?
No. I'm just saying I can't sit
with
here.
Like Doug's comments.
Yeah, right. Or even I can't sit here. No, my point was kind of in between what the two you were saying. I legit, seriously, I have not heard like player X is unhappy with his situation, and so I haven't heard anything about that. Doesn't mean it's not true. It's just like legit. I have not heard that. But I would think if you were to pile some of those comments and press conferences together, when you've got a future first ballot Hall of Famer, DeRozan's probably a Hall of Famer, Zach LaVine, you got a lot of really proud veterans, Dennis Schroeder, on the team. That the politics of the NBA state, you can only go so far with that and be losing before you lose the locker room, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm a broken record, but especially when, the optics of when and why you fired the previous coach.
Yeah.
Like, Mike Brown's press conferences couldn't hold a candle to some of Doug's when it comes to killing players.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Mike's a lifer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a team that had a winning record. So, you can only go so far down that road for sure.
Sam, no one expects Keegan Murray and maybe a more favorable schedule to fix 3-12, but just, I don't know, the next 15 games while they continue to sort this out, introduce Keegan back, maybe get a little bit of a break on the schedule. Just, is this more of a 3-12 team, more of a closer to below, a few games below 500 team, just a bad, like, what's your overall read on what this group really is?
I mean, of all the teams that, it's that time of year when we're trying to assess, and, I've been talking Warriors a lot on one of the stations in the Bay, and it's like roller coaster. You can't figure it out. Dave shakes his head. That's
whatever.
great.
That's fine. Traitor ass. Go ahead.
But like, the Kings feel like a fairly easy team to analyze. Like, they're just not a good team. I don't see it changing. I mean, my goodness, neighbor John and I yesterday were looking at, I'm always nervous now when we bring up gambling stuff, but I glanced at the line for the Kings OKC game.
Yeah.
And we had played the game of what do you think it is? And I said 12, OKC at home. And it was 18.
Yeah, 18 and a half. Did the same thing here.
Toledo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and they covered, for the record, So, but no, they're just not a good team. And the spirit, and like you said, I haven't been around them in person lately, so I don't know exactly how the players are feeling, but I can't imagine the level of hope and optimism is very high. The Keegan thing should help, but, they're going to have to find a way to start pushing this thing towards, figuring out what the hell it is that they're trying to build.
Sam Amick joining us. I'm still, ever since we started this conversation, I'm trying to think of like what is a fairly recent comparison when it comes to a team. This is not the Kings. Are what's even more frustrating to me is the Kings are not the Wizards. They're not the Nets. They're not one of these teams that is either devoid of talent or has a lot of talent that ain't ready yet. And I'm part of me is like, okay, what about maybe like last year's Suns? A team that sucked but had talent on it. And I think there's an argument, not to further depress people, but Other than maybe you could make an argument for the Pelicans with their pick encumbered this year to Atlanta and that horrific fireable offense by Joe Dumars trade, I don't know there's many, if any, teams in a worse position as we speak with the Kings. They're also the third oldest team in the NBA, Sam. So you said, well, they're a bad team. It's a really easy team to analyze. I agree, but I think the next the headline, the sub-headline is they're a really bad team that has talent, but is maybe one of the worst mixes of talent we've seen in recent NBA history.
Yeah, I mean, even the Suns example that you bring up, I don't hate it, but they won a whole lot more games
Yes.
than this team. They actually didn't have as many names on their team as this. That's what's crazy. Like this team has names, like big time. Yesterday happened to notice during the game, Malik's driving to the hoop, and you're in that mentality of like Malik would look great on a bunch of other teams. He would have an impact, and that's the case for a lot of these guys. So yeah, I mean it's and the part where I do think it's not a matter of it maybe being a powder keg, but where I just think that it's got to be so challenging for all of them in the room is that goes back to it's one thing if it's a bunch of guys who aren't really, who aren't even sure they should be in the NBA. These are guys we've talked about that might be headed for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So the level of pride and competitiveness and dissatisfaction with this kind of basketball life has got to be miserable. I mean, even Russ, he's on the one hand happy to be not out of the league, but clearly good enough to play for, at least half the teams in the league, if not more. And his efforts are not leading to win. So it might be the most unique collection I've ever seen.
Sam, I know we've got like a minute or two. This answer may not, may need more time than that. But just your thought on, I know Coach Kerr, a few others have talked about the rash of injuries and maybe a reasoning as to why it's still early in the info on all this kind of stuff. Do you have any read on why you think maybe there's a higher volume of early season injuries?
I mean, I'm buying what Steve's selling when it comes to the data-driven discussion about the way the game has changed, and that his commentary does check out with the research when you talk about time or I'm sorry, space coverage by players in today's game, in terms of speed, the up and down nature of things. That it is a recent uptick, kind of the Pacers effect, if you will. Teams, trying to get out and go, almost like the Denver Nuggets back in the 80s. And that combined with the size and the speed and the athleticism, it's you're having a lot of these soft tissue injuries. And Tom Haberstroh from Yahoo Sports had a good stat this week about how 56% of what he's deeming as all-star level players are available right now. And that's an absurd number. And that's players who were all-stars within the past 3 years. Just almost half of the league's best players not available. So I am starting to, I know we got to go. I'm starting to have more of the opinion that I think the league really should figure out how to be creative. I mean, if the NFL can print money with 17 games, I don't buy the fact that the mere act of going from 82 to something less than that definitely means you lose revenue. I think you need to get more creative and find ways to fix that. But then you have the whole discussion about historical context and stats, and there's a lot of layers to it. But it certainly does seem like guys are getting beat up because of the way they're playing.
20 years ago today, the 2005-06 season, there were 5 teams averaging over 100 points a game, with the lowest being the Blazers at 88.8. Through this season, there are 10 teams averaging over 120 points per game, with the lowest scoring team, the New Orleans Pelicans, at 109. By the way, that 109 the Pelicans are scoring, that would have been almost a full point ahead of second place 20 years ago. So Does seem to check out, even though that surface, Sam. Game's faster and crazier, just like you in your old age. Sam Amick with The Athletic.
Wow.
Enjoy your coffee.
Man.
More dog next time, please, the chat line is saying. And
okay, say hello, Willow. There she is.
Hypoallergenic dog. And we'll talk to you next week, brother. See you.
See y'all.
All right, Sam Amick will take a break when we come back. 4 down territory. Thursday Night Football tonight.